My sister and her husband recently took a trip to Mexico. Her husband is from Mexico, a little town called Chilpancingo. And when they were there, it was late September, and there was some Dia De Los Muertos, a little bit getting ready for that. When my sister came back, she went to my parents' house, and she set up her own Dia De Los Muertos table. She got a blanket down in Mexico, which you can see in the picture here on the table. It's very colorful. And she set up a little table with pictures of relatives and friends, family members who have since passed from this life. And so each time in October that I visited my parents' house, I saw this Dia De Los Muertos table with these pictures. And I noticed that my parents set some more pictures, additional pictures of family members and friends on the table. And I visited my parents a couple times in October, a couple weekends. And when I did, the table was there. And I picked up, a little pile of pictures, a stack of pictures that my dad set on the table. Started looking through them. I found some old pictures. One of my grandmother, who was born in 1914, she would be 110 years old this year. She would have turned 110 in July. And I saw a picture of her when she was in her late teens or early 20s. And I saw pictures of my grandparents that I hadn't seen before. Looking through these pictures brought up moments for the sharing of stories. My dad told me stories that I'd never heard before about my relatives, about my ancestors, about where I came from, who raised him, who raised me. And so throughout October, it was really amazing to reflect on loved ones, ancestors, and to reflect on death. There's a skull on the table, a memento mori, which means remember your death. And we remember how temporary this life is. And that's really important. So much in our culture we hide death. We have the religion of forever young, always new, always childish, never grow up. And then we have nursing homes and hospitals and funeral homes where we just kind of sweep death under the rug. It's important that we face death. Incredible revelations come from facing death. This is how we find hope that there is more beyond death, hope in an afterlife, hope in a creator. And then from hope to faith, we also find motivation and inspiration and strength to love, to serve others, to give of ourselves when we can face our own deaths, when we can let parts of ourselves die for the goodness of another person or for a good and virtuous action. If I'm going to give an hour of my time to a friend, then the part of me that had that hour of time to myself, or the part of me that spent that hour watching a movie, or the part of me that spent that hour hiking through the woods, the part of me that spent that hour doing exactly what I wanted to do has to die. So it's so important that we remember our death, that we face our death. And celebrating Dia De Los Muertos is an excellent way in our culture to do that. Halloween has kind of been taken over now by the consumerist corporations. It's now a time for candy and costumes, which is fun and good, beautiful, wonderful. But we also need to remember death. want to finish by reading a poem called The Definition of Love by Andrew Marvell. It's an interesting poem because there's a line in here that's just really always struck me. Magnanimous despair alone could show me so divine a thing. Only magnanimous despair, only incredible heartbreak and suffering, desperation, only that can show us something so divine as love, or as faith, as God. The Definition of Love by Andrew Marvell. My love is of a birth as rare as it is for objects strange and high. It was begotten by despair upon impossibility. Magnanimous despair alone could show me so divine a thing, where feeble hope could never have flown, but vainly flapped its tinsel wing. And yet I quickly might arrive where my extended soul is fixed, but fate does iron wedges drive, and always crowds itself betwixt. For fate with jealous eye does see two perfect loves, nor lets them close. Their union would her ruin be, and her tyrannic power depose. And therefore her decrees of steel us as the distant poles have placed, though love's whole world on us doth wheel, not by themselves to be embraced. Unless the giddy heaven fall and earth some new convulsion tear, and us to join the world should all be cramped into a planisphere. As lines, so loves oblique may well themselves in every angle greet, but are so truly parallel, though infinite can never meet. Therefore the love which us doth bind, but fate so enviously debars, is the conjunction of the mind and opposition of the stars. Magnanimous despair alone could show me so divine a thing. Remember death. This Halloween, remember to celebrate where you came from and where you're going.